I'm charged to welcome you to this electrifying gathering of minds and circuits. Today, we are not just attendees, we are the architects of innovation, the builders of the future, and the enthusiasts of the electronic symphony that resonates with the magic of microprocessors and microcontrollers. Aparna and I, Aditya, are your hosts for the day. And let me tell you, being in a room full of people who don't just see a microchip, but envision a techno-utopia, that's my kind of party. Raise your heads high for being the rock stars who amplify progress. Now, we are here for a common cause, the wizardry of microprocessors and microcontrollers. Who would have thought that these tiny chips would become the rock stars of the tech world? Certainly, TI did. And that's why they are the maestros guiding us through this technological wonderland. I bet many of us have looked at a microcontroller and thought, this tiny chip holds the power to change the world. If you haven't, don't worry. You are in the right place. We are here to convert you into the chip enthusiast club. TI, the brainiacs of the semiconductor wizardry, have been crafting the heartbeat of our gadgets. They don't just make chips. They are those that make these micro devices breathe life into products. And it all starts with these tiny, mighty wonders that we are about to dive into today, powered by the dreams and aspirations of the brilliant minds in this room. Yes, that's right. All the speakers today are hardcore engineers who love showcasing their work and improving on the feedback that you give them. Now here's the real secret sauce that makes it all come alive. Every one of you are esteemed customers. You're not just part of the audience, you're the secret ingredients behind the innovation we're celebrating today. You're the spice that turns the tech soup into a feast of progress. So buckle up, because we're about to embark on a journey where the only limit is the imagination of the ones who dare to dream circuits. Let's explore the possibilities, push the boundaries, and maybe, just maybe, find a little of quirkiness in those lines of code that makes the world go round. As we dive into the Texas Instruments microcosm, remember this, today is not just about circuits, it's about connections. Connections that spark ideas, connections that drive progress, and connections that quite literally power the future. And you, our valued customers, are at the heart of it all. Thank you for being here, for being the driving force behind innovation, and for being a part of the community that knows that the real magic isn't in the wires, it's in the ideas that we weave through them. So without further ado, let the circuitry carnival begin. Welcome to the Texas Instruments Processors Tech Seminar 2023. Over to you, Aparna.
In welcoming Artem to the stage.
Let's see if I'm audible. Yes? All right. Hi, everybody. Artem Aginsky, as Aparna has said, I'm extremely excited to come visit you, and I'm now a little bit scared to present after that fantastic intro, because I'm going to have to bring them down a little bit to earth. I'm not quite as good of a speaker as those two are, so apologies for that. But we are going to have a little bit of a good time today for the next hour or so. I'll have a few folks from my team as well join me to talk a little bit about the various products that we have, and we dig into it. But a little bit before we start, as mentioned, I'm the general manager for the Sitara processors business at TI, and been with TI now a little bit over 12 years, and during that time I've had the pleasure of visiting India pretty much every year, 3 or 4 times a year, except during COVID, of course. But really enjoyed being back to Bangalore, right? Pretty exciting. Having watched the industry evolve here in the last 12 years, right? I'm extremely excited to see what we can do together, right? Both as suppliers, partners, and customers to figure out how we solve real customer problems, right? And really make the world better. So I'm humbled to participate in that, and I appreciate everybody's invitation to join. So as we get started here, I did want to first introduce a little bit about the portfolio, the markets we attack, and really the innovation that we bring to our customers, to you. And within this portfolio, we really focused around 3 families, and you'll get to learn a little bit more about each of these families here shortly. But they break down to Sitara MCU, which is our high-performance microcontroller business, our Sitara MPU, which is our low-power, low-cost microprocessor business, and our Jacinto SoC, which is our performance differentiated products. And we'll dig into each one a little bit more. But what makes us unique at TI is the scalability across those portfolios. When you typically think about buying an SoC, you think of a single device, right? But what TI is trying to do is really build a scalable portfolio, both for microcontroller all the way to microprocessor, that reuses software, that reuses the high-level OS, right? This is where you can have connectivity, simplified software, right? And really leverage what the industry has collectively done in the last 12 to 15 years across these different OSs. And then we take both of those and we put them on steroids and we call that just into SoC. 10x performance, 100x performance. It's the most efficient SoC you can get for the types of performance. But the level of integration that you're going to get takes everything you see before it into a single SoC. So what used to be 10 components on a board are now solved by a single just simple SoC, right? And that's the type of innovation that you'll see on the markets that enable us to solve problems that couldn't be done before. AIM2 brings that real-time control capability. Well, innovation doesn't really matter if we're not making it accessible to a student, right, to anybody in the world. If it's something that only 10 people in the world can get access to, it's not innovation, right? Anything can be done for 10 people. Making it for millions and billions of people is the real challenge, right? And cost and that power scalability is what makes that reality. And then all connected with automotive as well, which I think are kind of the two mega trends that we're seeing in the industry. Not to say that. So one of those is low latency networking. And why does that matter? Well, if you play back 10 years ago, 20 years ago, every system we built was a standalone system, right? You built it, you turned it on, and it does what it does on its own. That doesn't exist anymore. Well, maybe in military, aerospace, and defense, that still exists. But everywhere else, everything is connected, right? Your car is connected, your e-bike is connected, your cell phone obviously is connected. Everything you do is now connected, right? And to make that work actually takes a lot of sense. It's not just bringing around standard networking, right? But actually investing in low latency industrial communications products. And what that means is we can actually solve a lot of the Industry 4.0 trends that are happening there, right? Getting better efficiency out of the factories, getting more automation out of the factories, and making sure we can learn from all the data that's happening 24/7 within those factories. But of course, factories aren't the only thing. If you think about even something like an EV charger, right, at a gas station or electrical station, whatever you may call it, or even at your house or your home or wherever, those are connected, right, because you want to optimize to the grid. You want all of them to talk to each other so that electricity is balanced around the city, right? You don't have blackouts because everybody's charging their car in only one place. That sort of joint intelligence can only happen when things are connected. Of course, it's important, but if you can't connect it all in the local place as well, right? Because humans will typically interface with a machine through an HMI, through a display, or some kind of direct interface, right? And so having the right amounts of IOs, the right amount of connectivity, not just in the networking context, but even in a simple board IO, is really key. And TI has been investing very heavily in making sure that the human element of interacting with the machine, right, which we often see through the display, is intuitive, right? If we play back 20 years ago, or however long it's been, iPhones really revolutionized how we interact with technology, right? What used to be very clunky and hard to control, everybody now expects it to be the iPhone experience, no matter what you do. Whether you're in the factory, in your car, or anywhere else, right? You want it to be frictionless. You want it to simply work, right? And that human-machine interface element is where TI is investing a lot of goodness and a lot of our innovation to make sure that you can make your products better and interfacing with your customers, okay? And then, of course, if you've been to any conference, literally any conference in the last 3 years, everybody's doing AI, of course. But what makes the TI unique in AI is we are at the edge. We're not trying to solve the compute in the cloud, right, or anything like that. What we're solving is AI where the data happens, right? And why does that make it unique? For a couple of reasons. One is actually latency that we talked about in networking matters a lot in the decision making, right? Because AI, what does it really mean? You see data and you act on that data. And if you have to send that somewhere else to make that decision, right, it will not be in time, right? If you're using AI for a factory to detect a person next to a machine for safety, right? You can't send that away to the cloud, wait for it to process, decide there's a person, and then stop the machine, right? You want it to immediately react to that. And that's something that has to happen at the edge, right? And that's what TI is very unique. We don't just take AI, but we take AI with connectivity, with security, with safety, and we bring it in a low power, easy to use package that you can solve real world problems today. In this industry for quite some time. Of course, we even obviously manufacture a lot of our own parts, so we're on both sides. We're both our own customer and our own supplier in many cases. Many of our SCADA connectivity products are actually in our factory. And the way I found that out, actually, interestingly enough, is during all the supply shortages. Because we got escalations from our own fabs because they couldn't buy equipment, they used our own parts because we didn't supply enough of those parts. It was a very interesting challenge to solve. But what makes it very unique as all of these systems get connected in the factory at every level, right? That connectivity becomes very important, not just to be low latency, as I said on the previous slide, but also to bring safety, security, right, and all the robustness and reliability. The trend in the industry around this is about better safety, better... Also to bring safety, security, right, and all the robustness and reliability. The trend in the industry around this is about better safety, better integration, better security, and that's something that TI invests very heavily in our key trends, and you'll see that across all of our products. Right? Okay, that didn't switch for some reason. So as we look at that Industry 4.0 innovation, right, just to summarize, it's expanding everywhere, but it's all about how we interface, how we deliver low latency connectivity, and how we make that solution simple, right? And we'll talk a little bit more about that. But at the end of the day, TI is about enabling you. So let's talk a little bit about automotive, because of course industrial is very interesting, but so is automotive, right? We see a lot of innovation happening in both industries, and they actually parallel each other quite a bit. When you look at the automotive industry, the big evolution now is becoming software as a car, right? Or car as software, however you want to call it. But what that really means is what, again, used to be a machine that just does what it does and never gets updated has now become a machine that is constantly getting updated. Take the Teslas of the world. While you sleep, the Teslas gain some kind of firmware upgrade, right, in your garage. And that started out in the premium cars, right, the Teslas of the world, but that's now proliferating down to every single price point of a car. And why? Because you can innovate faster. Right? And so what that means is getting cars that can be connected, again, right, that can be programmed, and really innovate on safety in a few other areas. So when you look at that, you know, we call it connected cars, but in a way that's low latency networking. We talk about ADAS and autonomous driving, but that's really AI with safety, right? And you talk about hybrid electrical, it's all about the control components. So those really fundamental technology components that TI is invested in, we can then apply to many applications, including automotive. Right? But what is unique about automotive is reliability and consistency is really key, right? Again, we all spend a lot of our time in cars, right? And especially in Bangalore, I just sat through an hour and a half of traffic. Spend a lot of time in your car. It's important that it's safe, right, and reliable. And that's where TI differentiates quite a bit, because we've actually have been in the automotive industry for quite some time, over 20 years at this point, right? And we have actually been on multiple generations of different products, including things like cluster and control, ADAS, hybrid electric, right? And now software-defined gateways, zonal, right? And other parts of the connected car. But it's very unique because we actually have the most tenured history and have the most processors on the road in cars, right? Nobody really thinks about that, you know, because you only hear about the big SoCs, right? The giant 1,000 top NVIDIAs and things like that, which are pretty exciting, of course. But you don't hear how many little processors and little MCUs sit in the car controlling your windows, controlling your display, controlling all those different things. And that's really where TI innovates. We bring that scalability in a safe, secure manner. Okay? But as I said, at the end of the day, we're here to provide a service to you, right? We don't build the car, we don't build the factory, right? But we build the SoC. And so it's important that we don't just provide you with our devices, but actually enable you to innovate with our SoCs. And the way we do that is through industry-leading tools and software, right? I talked a little bit about the scalability of our SDK, and we'll see that on the next slide. But that we don't stop there, right? We actually provide a developer zone on TI, called dev.ti.com, that enables you to see all of our demos, get all of our source code, right, and be able to get started very quickly. And then we're taking it even a step further and moving from only software to configurability. A lot of our device configurations can now be done with graphical tools. Things like configuring the DDR, the pin mocks, right? All of these components that used to be very painful spreadsheets and manual efforts can now be automated, can be done quickly. So you can focus actually on your application development, not on SoC bring up, right? And that's really where we differentiate us TI. So let's talk a little bit about our SDK itself, right? What makes our SDK very unique in the industry is, one, just quite simply, it's free. We don't charge for our SDK, it's open source, and we participate in the mainline community around this. If you look at Linux Upstream, we're one of the biggest patch uploader into the mainline, and our team prides themselves on that. And then, of course, we've been doing this for quite some time, right? I actually, we just sent out a happy announcement about this just a few days ago, but we just hit our 12th year of continuous updates on our SDK. So one SDK that is continuously being updated, right? Which means as your engineers, as your developers are investing on the TI platform, you know that that platform will be around for a long time, right? And that you'll continue to get updates and improvements, right? We have products from 12 years ago that are still today supported with the latest software, with the latest features, and the latest capability. And that's not something that anybody else in the industry can really stand up and say. But as I said, if you look on our actual kind of platform stack there, TI provides all of that down there so that you can focus on the green, right, with the application stack, right? Because, like I said, enabling our device is not your innovation. Your application is your innovation. So help us give you a device that works, and you build your application on top of it. And this is just as an example. I mentioned about our developer zone, right? If you visit us on dev.ti.com, we don't just provide the SDK, right? Because, yeah, you can just take the SDK, take the documentation, and run. But we actually provide a lot of demos, a lot of examples, a lot of capabilities. And actually, pretty much every demo you see here today, here in the room as well as in the other demo room, all of those demos are actually available on ti.com in open source, right? Again, not a lot of people can stand up and say that, and we really pride ourselves on simplifying your life, right, and in your development. Right? But this is just a snapshot of the website, and at the rate my team adds these demos, I'm sure it's already outdated, probably from a couple of months ago. But I encourage everybody to visit dev.ti.com and see the latest, greatest, right? We regularly update that with more demos, more examples, and more references. And then, as I mentioned, we focus on making sure that it's not just the SDK, it's also the tools that go around it, right? And part of that is, quote unquote, the no-code tooling, right? Because not everything has to be programmed. Some things are, at this point, baseline. They should just work, right? Safety should just work. Security should just work, right? Getting your AA program to the device should just work. You shouldn't need to write, thousands of lines of code. And that's really the philosophy that we take with this approach. So I threw an example of one of our tools for this called the Edge AI Studio. Again, available on ti.com for free. But it's a tool that enables you to train and compile your own models and load them to our devices, right? And take what we offer, but innovate on top of it with your own data, right? So think of it as bring your own data AI. But you don't have to go reinvent and create new models, right? There's actually hundreds of models that are already available that can solve a lot of these problems, and we want to make your development frictionless, right? And that's what you'll see here. I threw in a couple links. I'm sure we'll send these slides out afterwards. So just if you ever want to get started on these things, we provide all of this on TI.com, right? We are very open with availability of all of our collateral, all of our tools, all of our documentation, and everything that you would need. Just visit us at TI.com processors, and then our development tools that I was showing screenshots of, you can see on dev.ti.com. It's an example of one of our boards, but we actually have probably a dozen or a couple dozen different boards for different application, different demos, and everything that you may need. Okay. So I got messed up a little bit. But of course, all of that doesn't matter if you can't actually buy these SoCs, right? What we pride ourselves on is we're not just developing development kits, right? But the same development kits, you can actually buy every component that's on there, right? Nothing's under NDA. All of that information is available. And we want to make sure that you can procure it for a long time, right? And so we at TI make a strong investment in supply and sustainability and continuity, right? And the way we do that is, of course, we invest in our portfolio for a long time. You heard about our software support, right? Continue for 12 years. And we're not stopping after 12 years. It's continuing on. But we're also investing into making sure that our manufacturing capabilities are readily available to support you for a very long time, right? All of our products ship for 10, 15, 20 plus years, right, from when they've been developed. And that's, again, very unique in the processor industry. But the way we do it is we actually dual source everything. We multiply how many different manufacturing paths we have for everything that we do so that we can provide that stability, right? Quite frankly, we sell some DSPs that are older than me in my portfolio, so I couldn't tell you what they do. They were built a long, long time ago, but we still sell them. So it's very important we find ourselves to continue that investment across our portfolio. And of course, the way we do it is by investing in a lot of our own capabilities, right? When you think about the cycle of manufacturing a product, it's not just wafer development. There's assembly, there's packaging, there's test, right? And TI invests across board in many different infrastructures, right? I'm sure you've heard lots and lots of announcements from TI of we broke ground on yet another fab, I think just a week ago, right? We started another digital fab in Utah. I'll talk about it on the next slide. But we continue to make that expansion across the whole world, right? And you can see how geographically diverse we are, right? To, again, help us be able to scale when natural disasters happen, or maybe in some cases, political disasters. Okay. So I did want to highlight just a couple of those that we're now investing. You may have heard, but in the last 12 months, we've started developing 6 fabs. Right? That's the biggest number anybody in the silicon industry can say, right? Because we want to make sure that you're enabled with parts for a long time. But the most interesting ones for today, as we are talking, are these LFAB in Lehi, Utah. L stands for Lehi in the name. But these are 2 fabs that are really designed to support our capacity needs all the way through 2035. Just to think about how fast the silicon industry is growing. That's the types of capacity we're investing in, right? And this is where we manufacture a lot of our MCUs and MPU products, right? But of course, you can't have digital without analog, and TI has a lot of good analog, and we continue to invest in our Richardson and Sherman facilities as well to expand the PMICs, the ADCs, and anything else that you might need to connect to the processor, right? And again, that makes TI very unique because we have the widest portfolio of components for your board. And then, of course, as I mentioned, last but not least, just manufacturing the wafers isn't enough. You have to make sure that you have a stable supply at every level, at the test, at the probe, at the assembly. And we continue to invest very heavily in our back-end capacities as well. Actually, most of our SoCs are assembled in-house, right? And again, very unique to the industry. But in parting words, I did want to just re-highlight, right? I highlighted many different things here, but at the end of the day, what I want you to take away is not which product I showed or the name of the product lines, right? But take away that TI is a great partner to help you grow and to help you solve your customer problems, right? And with that, I'm going to let a few of my team members come on stage here and introduce a little bit more about the specific products. So we're going to start with Karthik. I think you're up to talk a little bit about Jacinto SOCs.